Search the parasite. Chloe Caldwell screamed it across her own wedding reception, one finger pointed straight at me like she had been waiting all night for the cue. 200 guests went silent under the ballroom chandeliers. The band stopped mid-song. A waiter froze beside the champagne tower with a tray still balanced in one hand. And then the phones came up. That was the part one remember most clearly. Not the accusation. Not Chloe's face twisted with the kind of triumph people only show when they think the room already belongs to them. The phones. 100 black rectangles lifting together, hungry for whatever humiliation had just been promised. I stood near the edge of the dance floor in a charcoal suit Marissa had told me was too plain for a Caldwell wedding. My wife stood 12 feet away from me, 8 months pregnant, one hand resting on the curve of our unborn child. She looked scared. But not for me. For the room. For her family. For the scene I was apparently supposed to absorb quietly so the night could continue. My ring is gone, Chloe said, storming toward me in a wedding gown that cost more than my first year's rent. And I know exactly who took it. I didn't take your ring, I said. My voice sounded calm. That surprised even me. Chloe laughed. Of course you'd say that. Cheap trash always reaches for what it can't afford. I looked at Marissa. Waited. 1 second. 2. 3. She did not move. And that was when I understood this was not an accusation. It was a performance. And I had been cast before I ever walked into the ballroom. Eleanor Caldwell moved before anyone else did. That told me something. Real shock hesitates. She did not. She crossed the marble floor with her mouth set in a hard little line, like she had been rehearsing her disgust in the mirror. Empty your pockets, she said. I looked at Marissa again. Still nothing. Eleanor, I said quietly, do not touch me. She smiled. Not wide. Just enough. Then she grabbed the lapel of my suit jacket and yanked. A button tore loose and hit the floor somewhere near my shoe. Before I could step back, her other hand caught the front of my shirt and pulled hard enough that the fabric split down the chest. 200 people gasped at once. My skin hit the cold ballroom air. Phones tilted higher. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Eleanor shoved her hands into my jacket pockets, then my pants pockets, patting me down like I was being processed at a police station instead of standing at her daughter's wedding. I kept my hands open at my sides. Not because I was weak. Because if I grabbed her wrists, the video would become about my hands on an older woman instead of hers on me. Say something, I said to Marissa. My wife looked at me with tears in her eyes and fear in her throat. Then she said, "Just let them check you. We'll fix it later." That sentence ended my marriage. Not legally. Not yet. But in the place where a man keeps his last excuses for the person he loves, something closed. They found nothing. Of course they found nothing. Eleanor checked my jacket, my pants pockets, the inside lining where the fabric had torn, even the waistband like I might have taped $1 million ring to my skin between the salad course and the first dance. No ring, someone near the bar murmured. Chloe's face tightened. Just for half a second. The smallest crack in the performance. He hit it, she snapped. Check his phone. Check his car. That was when the room sharpened. Not emotionally. Visually. The way it does when your mind decides panic is less useful than evidence. I saw the wedding planner near the stage, pale, her clipboard pressed flat against her chest like a shield. I saw Chloe's cousin Amanda standing near the head table, both hands locked around a small silver evening bag. Too tight. Not the way a woman holds a purse. The way a person holds a secret they suddenly wish had been handed to someone else. Then I saw the red camera light above the exit doors. Another above the bar. Another near the DJ booth, angled directly toward the bridal suite hallway. A hotel like this did not leave blind spots in a ballroom. Not for mystery. For insurance. Chloe had remembered the phones. She had forgotten the cameras. I pulled the torn edges of my shirt together with one hand and reached for my phone with the other. Chloe laughed when she saw it. "What? Are you calling the police on your own family?" "No," I said. I looked past her at Marissa. At my wife. At the woman carrying my child, standing there with wet eyes and closed hands. "I'm calling mine." My father answered on the first ring. He always did when I called twice in 1 minute. "Elliot." I kept my voice low. Not because I was calm. Because if I let even 1 ounce of what I felt into my throat, it would have come out as something I could not control. "Dad," I said, "it's time." There was a pause. Not confusion. Calculation. Then Harold Sterling said, "Stay exactly where you are." The line went dead. Chloe was still smiling when every ballroom door locked with a single synchronized click. That smile lasted maybe 2 seconds. For security officers entered through the main doors. Behind them came Nathaniel Ruiz, the hotel's general manager, in a black suit and a face so composed it made the whole room seem suddenly childish. Eleanor pointed at me. "Detain him." Nathaniel walked straight past her, stopped in front of me, and said, "Mr. Sterling, are you injured?" For 3 years, the Caldwell family had called me cheap in every language rich people use when they want the insult to sound like concern. Plain. Simple. Not quite polished. Not from our kind of background. They had built an entire family mythology around the idea that I was lucky Marissa had chosen me. So when Nathaniel Ruiz called me Mr. Sterling in the center of that ballroom, the sound landed harder than any shout would have. Chloe blinked. "His name is Caldwell Sterling," she said, like the correction might save her. "My legal name is Elliot Sterling," I said. Nathaniel looked at my torn shirt, then at Eleanor, then at the phone still recording. "And Sterling," he said evenly, "is the name attached to the ownership structure of this property." The room changed. You could feel it. Not loudly. Not all at once. But the way air changes before a storm breaks. My father, Harold Sterling, built Sterling Hospitality Group from one failing banquet hall outside Dayton into 4 boutique hotel chains across the Midwest. The Alder House was one of them. This ballroom. These chandeliers. The cameras Chloe forgot. The security team Eleanor tried to command. All of it sat under my father's company. And for the first time all night, Chloe Caldwell looked at the room and realized it had never belonged to her. Marissa knew who I was before we got married. Of course she did. You do not marry into a family like mine by accident, and you do not sign a prenup drafted by Harold Sterling's attorneys without understanding the name on the letterhead. But early in our engagement, she asked me not to tell her family. We were sitting in my apartment kitchen at midnight, eating takeout from cardboard containers because she said she liked that I did not make everything feel formal. "My mother changes around money," she said. I remember that clearly. Not because it sounded alarming at the time. because it sounded vulnerable. "She'll stop seeing you," Marissa said. "She'll only see your father's company. Chloe will be worse. Arthur will turn every dinner into a business opportunity. So what do you want me to do?" "Just be Elliot," she said, reaching across the table for my hand. "Let them know you without the sterling part." I loved her. And love makes some lies sound like protection when they are really just delay. So I agreed. I wore plain suits. I let Eleanor assume my analyst salary was all I had. I let Chloe make jokes about discount watches and practical shoes. I thought we were protecting something pure. Standing in that ballroom with my shirt torn open, watching Marissa avoid my eyes, I finally understood. She had not been protecting our marriage from her family's greed. She had been protecting her family's right to despise me without consequence. The first Christmas after our wedding, Eleanor gave me a gift card to a discount menswear store. She wrapped it in silver paper and handed it to me in front of the entire family. "For something a little more appropriate at our events," she said. Everyone laughed in that careful way people laugh when they are checking who has permission to be cruel. I looked at Marissa. She smiled too tightly. In the car afterward, she said, "Mom is just old-fashioned. She doesn't mean it like that." I told myself she was right. That was the first lie I helped her tell. A year later, at a business dinner Chloe hosted for some friends from her fiancé's circle, she introduced me as Marissa's husband. "He does spreadsheet stuff, I think." Spreadsheet stuff. At the time, I was a senior financial analyst with 2 certifications and a portfolio risk model my firm was using across 3 regional acquisitions. One of Chloe's friends turned to me and asked, not unkindly, "So what do you actually do?" And there I was, a grown man, explaining my own job at a dinner table, while my sister-in-law watched me with a smile that said the discomfort was the point. I told myself Chloe was insecure. I told myself Eleanor was blunt. I told myself Marissa would choose me when it mattered. Men can be very loyal to the version of a life they were promised. At Marissa's baby shower, Eleanor said she hoped the baby took after the Caldwell side. Financially, I mean, she added, loud enough for 3 tables to hear. People laughed because the room taught them to. I was standing near the dessert table, holding a paper plate with a slice of cake I suddenly could not swallow. Marissa was 6 months pregnant then. She was glowing in the way people say women glow when they do not want to admit pregnancy, is also exhaustion, swelling, and fear. I looked at her, waiting for even the smallest correction. She adjusted the ribbon on a gift basket and pretended not to hear. That night, I told myself she was tired. 5 months before Chloe's wedding, Arthur introduced me at his country club to 2 business partners as Marissa's husband. He helps with numbers. Helps with numbers. Like I was a calculator she kept in the kitchen drawer. I corrected him gently. "I work in risk analysis." Arthur nodded once. "Right," he said, already looking past me toward a man with a better handicap and a larger mouth. On the drive home, I told Marissa it bothered me. She rubbed one hand over her stomach and said, "Can you please not make everything a fight?" So I stopped talking. That was the mistake I kept making. I confused silence with peace because peace was what I wanted my child to be born into. But silence is not peace. Sometimes it is just permission wearing a nicer coat. For months before Chloe's wedding, my father's company quietly rescued Arthur and Eleanor Caldwell from bankruptcy. They did not know that. Their events business had been collapsing for almost a year. Bad contracts. Unpaid vendors. A lawsuit from a venue partner Arthur kept describing as temporary friction until the bank stopped agreeing with him. Sterling Hospitality Group bought the debt, restructured the contracts, preserved the jobs, and let the Caldwells stay in place with their dignity still attached. My father did that because I asked him to. Marissa begged me not to tell them. If they know it came from your family, she said, crying at our kitchen table, they'll never recover from the humiliation. I thought that was compassion. It was not. It was maintenance. She wanted her parents rescued, but she did not want them forced to respect the man whose family had rescued them. She was laughing. I'm finally going to put the budget husband in his place. I told Marissa that night. She looked exhausted. 8 months pregnant. Tired of choosing, though I did not yet understand she had already chosen. You're reading too much into party talk, she said. I believed her. Right up until her mother tore my shirt open in front of 200 people. A woman in a charcoal suit entered behind Nathaniel. No rush. Just the clean, measured walk of someone who understood that control is quieter than fear. Renata Ford, she said, General Counsel for Sterling Hospitality Group. Eleanor's face tightened. This is a private family event. Renata looked at my torn shirt. Then at the phones. Then at the bridesmaids frozen near the head table like painted figures on a cake. No, she said. This is an active theft allegation and a documented assault inside a Sterling-owned property. Chloe scoffed, but the sound came out thin. Assault? He stole my ring. Then we will preserve the evidence, Renata said. All of it. She turned slightly toward the security team. No one leaves this ballroom until hotel security has secured the exits, preserved the camera footage, and identified the parties involved. A murmur moved through the guests. Eleanor stepped toward Nathaniel. You cannot trap people in here. We are not trapping anyone, Renata said. We are preserving a scene you created in front of 200 witnesses. Marissa finally moved toward me. Elliot, she whispered, please don't do this. I looked at her. At the woman who had asked me to keep my name quiet, and then stood silent while her family stripped my dignity off my body. I didn't do this, I said. I just stopped letting you all decide what it was called. Marissa's face went pale. Not when Chloe accused me. Not when Eleanor tore my shirt open. Not even when Nathaniel called me Mr. Sterling. She went pale when Renata said the word evidence. That told me something I did not want to know. Elliot, she said softly, we can talk about this at home. I almost smiled. Home. The word people reach for when they want privacy after letting your humiliation become public. There is no at home after this, I said. Her hand moved over her stomach, slow and protective. That still got to me. Even then. Even with my shirt ripped open and 200 people watching, I looked at my unborn child under her hand and felt the old instinct to soften. Then I remembered what she had said. Just let them check you. We'll fix it later. You knew my family rescued your parents' business, I said. The room shifted again. Arthur Caldwell's head snapped toward Marissa. Eleanor's mouth opened. Chloe stopped breathing like a bride in a photograph. Marissa whispered, Don't. You begged me to keep it quiet, I said. You said it was about dignity. You said your family would be humiliated if they knew. But that wasn't all of it, was it? You wanted them rescued. You just didn't want them forced to respect the man whose family saved them. Marissa looked down. And there it was. The answer. Not spoken. Worse. Confirmed. Renata tapped her tablet twice. The enormous screen behind the wedding cake went black. For one strange second, Chloe and Wesley's engagement photos disappeared, and the ballroom stared at its own reflection in the dark glass. Then the footage appeared. Timestamp, 5:42 p.m. Bridal suite hallway. Then interior angle. Chloe stood in front of a mirror in her wedding dress, veil lifted, one hand extended. Her engagement ring slid off her finger. Not lost. Not stolen. Removed. Amanda stood beside her with the small silver evening bag open. The ballroom made a sound I will never forget. Not a gasp. Not yet. A low, collective intake of breath as 200 people realized they were watching the moment before the lie was born. Then the audio came through the speakers. Small, tinny, and perfectly clear. When I accuse Elliot, Chloe said on the recording, act surprised. In the present, Chloe's face changed color. Wesley, her new husband, turned toward her slowly. What is this? Chloe opened her mouth. Nothing came out. On the screen, Amanda laughed nervously. What if Marissa says something? Chloe adjusted her veil in the mirror. She won't, she said. She never does. I did not look at my wife. I did not have to. Some truths land harder when you refuse to watch them hit. The footage kept playing. Another clip loaded. Timestamp, 5:49 p.m. The bridal suite door opened, and Eleanor walked in. Not rushed. Not confused. She looked at Chloe's empty hand, then at Amanda's silver bag, and her face did not change. That was the detail that ruined her. Innocent people ask questions. Eleanor adjusted Chloe's veil. On the recording, Chloe said, "Make sure Marissa keeps him quiet." Eleanor smiled at her daughter in the mirror. She always does. The ballroom erupted. Not shouting exactly. Something lower. Meaner. The sound of 200 people realizing they had not attended a wedding reception. They had attended a staged execution. Amanda's hands started shaking. The silver evening bag slipped from her grip and hit the marble with a soft little sound that somehow carried through the whole room. One of the security officers moved immediately. Amanda said, "Wait." But it was too late. He opened the bag in full view of everyone. The ring rolled out onto the floor. $1 million solitaire catching chandelier light like it wanted to be seen. For the first time all night, Chloe had nothing prepared. Wesley stepped away from her. One step. Then another. His face looked almost young. "You staged this," he said. Chloe reached for him. "Wesley." He looked at the ring on the floor. "On our wedding day." And Chloe Caldwell, who had spent years calling me cheap trash, finally discovered the cost of being believed. The next 6 weeks moved slowly. That surprised me. When your life breaks open in a ballroom, you expect consequences to arrive with the same violence. They do not. They arrive in folders. In interviews. In timestamps. In careful words spoken by people who know exactly which sentence will survive a courtroom. Detective Marisol Ibarra from the Fraud and Theft Division took the case 3 days later. Sharp voice. Tired eyes. The first thing she said after reviewing the footage was, "Most people are at least smart enough not to narrate their own fraud on camera." Renata's legal team preserved the full security footage that same night. Chain of custody. 2 hotel IT witnesses. Timestamp copies. Sealed evidence logs. Everything clean enough that even Chloe's attorney stopped trying to suggest tampering after the first hearing. Then Gerald Whitmore, a forensic accountant retained by my father's firm, found the insurance policy. Chloe had taken out a separate policy on the ring 2 months before the wedding, for nearly double its appraised value. Then he found another one. A bridal bracelet. Different venue. Previous year. Reported loss to insurance, but never to police. Phone records placed 3 calls between Chloe and an independent jewelry appraiser in the 10 days before the wedding. The appraiser confirmed she had asked about revaluation for claim purposes. By the time Detective Ibarra finished her report, the accusation against me had turned into something else entirely. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Filing a false police report. Chloe had tried to turn me into a thief. Instead, she gave the state a case. Chloe was charged before the month ended. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Insurance fraud. Filing a false police report. Her attorney tried to frame it as wedding stress, which might have worked if the footage had shown panic instead of planning. It did not. Wesley filed for annulment 4 months later. Fraud, his petition said. On more than one front. I only read that line once, but I remember setting the paper down and thinking he had finally understood the bride everyone else had been applauding. Amanda cooperated. Texts from Chloe going back 3 weeks, including one that said, "He'll be too embarrassed to fight back." She was almost right. Almost. Eleanor was not criminally charged for tearing my shirt open, which took me longer to accept than I like admitting. But Renata referred me to a civil attorney named Ria Reyes. We sued for battery and emotional distress. We won. Ria told me the money was not the point. The point, she said, is that there will be a permanent public record saying what she did to your body in that ballroom was not a family misunderstanding. Not because I asked for it. Because no board wants a man who let his family stage fraud inside a client venue and then called it private. Marissa and I separated within the week. I filed for divorce 34 days later. She did not contest it. She wrote me one letter. 8 pages. Most of it sounded like apology until you noticed how many sentences began with, "I was afraid." I did not answer. Fear may explain silence. It does not make silence loyal. My son was born 5 weeks after Chloe's wedding. Healthy. Loud. Angry at the lights. I held him in the hospital room and thought about the ballroom. About standing there with my shirt torn open, waiting for my wife to become my wife in front of her family. She never did. So I called the one man who had always answered. The Caldwells spent 3 years calling me dead weight. My father's name was on the deed of the room where they said it loudest.